Hello Funkers, Tony Funk here, back at it again with another Tony short. In this short, I will be breaking down Master Roshi's use of a mysterious dodging technique, which leads me to believe that it was in fact a variant of Ultra Instinct. Now, in order for me to make my scandalous claim, we must first analyze what constitutes as a form of Ultra Instinct. Let's first define Ultra Instinct to make things easier. Ultra Instinct, as defined by Whis, is a technique where the practitioner separates their consciousness from their own body so that they may fight independently from their own emotions. It is considered to be the constant state of the angels, despite it being one of the most difficult techniques to master. There is something we have to take into consideration, however. It is not a transformation based on the nomenclature used in both the anime and the manga, but rather a technique or a state of mind. And yes, I am 100% cognizant that Goku does go through a quote-unquote transformation every time he goes into it, but I will get into explaining the differences between Ultra Instinct's appearance whenever it is used and what constitutes an actual transformation. Okay, so we know it's the mastery of self-movement, and we know it's not considered a transformation, but where's the threshold of when quick responses become Ultra Instinct? Well, in some ways, there really isn't a threshold, but since Akira Toriyama is an expert marketer and toy seller, he devised a way to make it known that Ultra Instinct was being used to a level of proficiency beyond the gods. He used the illusion of a transformation as a usual marker to indicate the level of proficiency being used. For example, we see Beerus use Ultra Instinct before in the manga's exhibition match between the gods. But since we learned from Whis that Beerus hasn't mastered Ultra Instinct, we can infer that Beerus was merely using a basic or rudimentary form of Ultra Instinct, one that wasn't worthy of an entire transformation sequence. But even Goku himself uses Ultra Instinct without transforming. In Chapter 73, Goku uses Ultra Instinct versus Granola and combines the abilities with his transformations as a means to combine the inherent strength of his forms with the defensive qualities of Ultra Instinct. This is how we notice that Ultra Instinct is more of a technique than a transformation, with the levels of Ultra Instinct carrying usual markers, Omen being indicative of a dodge-only version, whereas Perfected Ultra Instinct being an attack and a defensive version. Okay, so now that I've made my sensationalist claim about Roshi possessing this technique, where's my evidence? Well, let's start with the controversial scene found in chapter 39 of the manga. In this scene, and in a couple others, we see Master Roshi dodging Jiren's attacks in what seems to be a confounding series of events for Jiren. Yet before everyone loses their shit, Whis quiets us all down, and states that despite the stark similarities between whatever Master Roshi seems to be using, at the end of the day, it is not Ultra Instinct. Whis' exact words from the manga being, "a strong resemblance, yes," and then later he says, "a resemblance, yet still a far cry from that technique," to which Beerus replies, "Thought so. No way that old coot could master it." Whis retorted with, "Still, with his age has come great wisdom, and it's a similar principle." Okay, cool. So case closed. Why are we even making a video on this if the manga canon has just informed us that Roshi was not using Ultra Instinct? But here's the thing. Whis isn't the narrator, nor is he posited as a reliable commentator for the Tournament of Power. But Whis doesn't even know what Ultra Instinct looks like when he's staring right at it. It wasn't until Goku started dodging Jiren's attacks until Whis realized what kinds of changes were going on in Goku's fighting. Whis was being used as an exposition tool, but in order for the reveal to be suspenseful, he had to be treated as an unreliable narrator of sorts, even though he wasn't a narrator, which tells us that though Whis is an expert practitioner of Ultra Instinct, he's unused to seeing mortals using the form. We can also see how in the Tournament of Power, Whis is seen thinking about what he's seeing Goku do, and is thus drawing off-the-cuff conclusions as things happen. An example of this is when Whis is stating that Omen was Ultra Instinct, and it wasn't. Until Goku went full Ultra Instinct was when Whis finally confirmed that Goku had figured out how to use Ultra Instinct to his full potential. I'm not saying Whis is just making shit up on the spot, but he's never dealt with Saiyans or humans prior to the events of Dragon Ball Super, which means that there's still a lot that Whis has to learn about mortals before he can definitely make calls about their potentials and skill levels. Whis might be the most knowledgeable guy in the universe, but that doesn't mean that he knows everything about how mortals use really basic forms of Ultra Instinct. Which is why I believe that Master Roshi was indeed using a really low tier of Ultra Instinct. I don't think there's any reason to suspect that Roshi had been introduced to a similar technique to Ultra Instinct called by a different name that was discovered independently and offers the same principles. Namely, Master Roshi was able to defeat Casserole, a character who was significantly stronger than he was. Then he was also able to go toe-to-toe with Jiren, who although he was probably pulling back so he wouldn't kill Master Roshi, he was trying to eliminate him. And I mean, we've already seen Jiren be a boss, so we know Jiren can get the job done even when he has to hold back. And yet Master Roshi was able to dodge a multitude of his attacks. Also, another key clue here is when Beerus says, "No way that Coot could master it." You see, Beerus never said that Coot could try Ultra Instinct, he said that Coot could master it. Of course, Master Roshi can't master Ultra Instinct. He'd get that Omen aura, or he'd get that white hair aura, even though he already has white hair, I guess. But we've seen Beerus use Ultra Instinct without that aura, and in chapter 39 we see Master Roshi capable of moving freely without thought, very much similar to Ultra Instinct. Master Roshi explains that there's one last lesson that he never taught Goku, stating, one last lesson from the Turtle School then, on how to move well. Of course Master Roshi's referring to how to fight well when he says how to move well, his positioning, how to avoid attacks, and for whatever reason that's the lesson that he never taught Goku. But could it be that he's referring on how to move instinctually? Well, it's all up for interpretation, but we've seen Whis being wrong about things before. We've also seen Whis being wrong in the Future Trunks saga, where he didn't know if killing Zamasu in one timeline would kill him in another. And later in chapter 68, Whis explains to Goku that there are levels of Ultra Instinct in differing levels of mastery. Whis explaining that he had a better Ultra Instinct than Mirrors, and Mirrors had a better Ultra Instinct than Goku, and the Grand Priest having a better Ultra Instinct than Whis, and so on and so forth. Because of this, who's to say that Master Roshi's Ultra Instinct isn't on one of the lower ends of that tier? I think considering Roshi was able to react so quickly, and was able to emulate Ultra Instinct, albeit for a very short amount of time, and at a much lower level, I would say that Master Roshi would have surely heard of a technique that would be similar to Ultra Instinct. Do you agree? Do you think Master Roshi does know a form of Ultra Instinct? Or is it all just horseshit? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I shall see y'alls down the road.